in the end, just because life doesn't go the way you believe it's supposed to go, whatever path you have come up with in your head, that doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it's different. And I think the key thing to remember on all of that stuff is do not self-eliminate. Like, there were people that are like, oh, well, you won't get it.
Man.
I'm like, all right, well, I'll let them tell me no. I'll apply.
Don't ever let nobody tell you not to apply, because let them tell you no. Let them be the ones to tell you no. You just eliminated yourself. Put your name in, put that application in, apply for that program, all those things, because you never know. The crazy thing is they might, yes. We are live. Here we are with the LFA podcast. Here with my main man, Alex Cole, all the way from the DMV. I'm here in Texas right now, but we got a good day for everybody. Alex Cole, Captain 737 on the 737. I'm the Airbus pilot, but 73s are good too. Previous DV Airlift. So find all the important people out of DC, and board member of Lake Flight Academy. So what's going on, Alex? How you doing today? Glad to have you here.
Hey,
what's going?
Happy to be here. Happy to join you on this podcast to talk a little bit about who we are, what we are, and I love it. I love that we had this opportunity to share this. So excellent.
Yeah, man. Alex has been with Legacy Flight Academy since Legacy Flight Academy has started, and I'm really just want to hear some of your story about what you've done with Legacy Flight Academy. Ultimately, I want to know, like, big picture, who you are, where you're from, and then we'll start from there. Let's just with big picture there. We'll break it down from there.
Yeah. No. So first of all, love that we can do this. I think if we're talking origin stories, right? So I'm a son of a retired colonel in the Air Force. My dad's retired, and then I have a great uncle who flew in the Air Force as well. But right around 12 years old, that's when I first got kind of the inkling to want to fly. It was back when we lived in Okinawa, Japan at the time, and dating myself a little bit, but they were flying the SR-71 and they were flying the F-15 out of Japan at Kadena Air Base. And the SR-71, even though it's known as the Blackbird in Okinawa, they called it the Habu, which is a snake that's out there, a poisonous snake out there. So I knew it as the SR-71 Habu. I saw that plane. I had a good friend of mine that in junior high that his dad was an SR-71 pilot, and we got to do a tour of the SR-71. I thought it was amazing. I got to see it up close. I got to see the spacesuit and all that stuff, and the really good the thing that echoes in my mind still that I can remember it is you can hear the engines when they start up, and so I would go up on the hill, and you could see down on the flight line. And I remember seeing it taxi out, and then you'd see these two huge blue flames come out, and that bad boy would just take off, and it just the thunder, and you just see it, and then it just kind of disappeared. It disappeared off into the west there, and I knew then. I was like, I want to do that. I was like, whatever that is, I want to do that, and I just was like, hey, I'm in the military. I go, I like that. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I want to do in that effect. Spoiler alert, I never flew the SR-71, but it was that inkling of being around it and being introduced to it at a young age. And finished out my high school years. We moved from Japan. We moved to California. I applied to the Air Force Academy. I got accepted to the Air Force Academy. I was looking at ROTC options, but my dad's told me at the time, he's like, all the pilots I know go to the Air Force Academy. And and so I was like, all right, I had applied to University of Southern California. I applied to USC and UCLA, and I got accepted there with the ROTC programs. As luck would have it, it was the best decision given the timing of when I graduated, because when I graduated, they were limiting the number of pilot slots. It was right after Desert Storm.
Mm-hmm.
Department of Defense was shrinking, and there's like, hey, we don't need as many pilots. Unfortunately, um, even when at my senior year, I found out that they were only taking the top about 250 pilots, 250 grads that wanted to go out of 1,000. I was
Yeah.
not in the top 250. Um, and so they sent me off, and I did civil engineering for 3 years in Ohio, and enjoyed that. I think a lot of the things that happened in my life, and as I just kind of go through it, for a while, I felt some kind of way, but in the end, just because life doesn't go the way you believe it's supposed to go, whatever path you have come up with in your head, that doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it's different. And there's growth opportunities in all of those. And I think for me, going to do civil engineering, I got a lot of leadership. I got to do a lot of great things working, and I got to drive a front end loader, all of this heavy equipment. I got to work with teams of like 15 to 20 airmen, where we would go and
Hmm.
do all these jobs, all this stuff I didn't do until later as a older officer in the Air Force. Air Force kept their promise. They sent me to pilot training. I went to Laughlin
Man,
in
and
Texas.
you brought up a real point that
Hmm.
was, I think we don't want to miss out, because I think people gotta hear that piece. Is, you think you have a path that's going to
Yeah,
go a particular way, it doesn't go that way, and you find a different way, and even though you kind of hold on to like feeling a particular type of way about it, whether it's, got a chip on your shoulder, whatever it is that you hold on to when things don't go your way, at the end, if it ends up happening that you win, it's almost like, well, you still stuck it out. You still got to what your goal was. So it doesn't really matter how the path kind of shaped out to get you to where you actually wanted to be anyway. So,
yeah,
you know,
and I think we all don't realize that when we're younger is that plan that you come up with, that's just your plan. That's what you want it to be. That's not necessarily how things. And just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong. And so
right.
for me, um, I that was a growth period for me because I felt I was very disappointed when I graduated, and they're like, "Oh, well, you can't go," because I was like, the only reason I went here to this particular institution is because I wanted to fly, and now I'm not flying. But all of the beautiful things that I learned, the experiences that I got to do, made me a better officer, a better leader, a better individual from those experiences. And then I was more mature going to pilot training, which
Mm,
I think very much helped me.
yeah.
Uh, Went through pilot training, finished up there. I got an assignment with the Rivet Joint, which is an RC-135 out in Omaha, Nebraska.
Yep.
Um, Went there. I was like, I don't. It was definitely not my number one pick, uh, but when I got there, amazing experience. I wouldn't change any of, like as I go through life, like all of the things that happened, even though it didn't happen the way I wanted when I got there, amazing experience, amazing group of individuals that I got to fly with, an incredible mission, and a very small community that people don't really know about. And then I got to be the operations officer out at the 82nd Reconnaissance Squadron out in Japan, in Okinawa. I went back, which is very rare for uh, children of military to go back to places that they had never been before or been where they grew up.
Yeah.
It was a unique experience. I got to do that. And then I think for me, the key pinnacle was being able to apply to the 89th Airlift Wing. And
So, so you got to go back to the same place that you had that
started it
first
all.
vision
Yeah.
of
Hmm.
seeing that SR-71 take off out of
Yeah.
Okinawa. You got to actually go back there and fly jets out of there.
Yeah. The hill that I sat on, I could have sworn it was like a mountaintop. It was much smaller in real life. Uh, my wife highlighted, I was like, man, this is massive hill. And she's like, this is the hill. I was like, well,
Well, you know
maybe,
what? I mean,
maybe
you
it's the
learned
Earthship.
early.
It's probably
You
Earthship.
you you learned early how to tell pilot stories. 10% truth. There was
Oh,
this
yeah.
huge mountain that I was
Massive.
sitting upon,
I had no
looking
snow on it.
down.
Probably snow on that mountain.
Right, and it's a little 10-foot hill.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I think it was just really fond memories.
That's good.
Lucky that I got to do that. A lot of great experiences out there working in the Asian theater. Unfortunately, that was right around 9/11, so I did spend quite a bit of time in Iraq, Afghanistan kind of stuff. And but it just really super proud of my career. And I will say that I had been following this path, and I was like, well, somebody had actually said, "Hey, have you thought about flying presidential airlift?"
So, DV Airlift. What got you into DV Airlift? How'd you get there?
Yeah, so when I was in Japan, the option was I could just go back to Omaha and I could take I was potentially taking command of a squadron out there. And I really, after doing that for 8 years, I just said, "Hey, I want to do something different. I want to try something different." And a friend of mine had told me about it, and I said, "I don't even know." And so we're part, in the Air Force, you have Air Combat Command and you have Air Mobility Command. Well, I was in Air Combat Command, and so the presidential airlift stuff is in Air Mobility Command. I just said, I don't know if they'll let me cross over into that, but I'll apply. And I think the key thing to remember on all of that stuff is do not self eliminate. Like there were people that are like, "Oh, well, you won't get it." I'm
Man.
like, "All right, well, I'll let them tell me no. I'll apply." I think I meet and I exceed all of their requirements based on what I had seen on the internet. I'm like, okay,
You,
this is their
yeah.
application. I was like, I exceeded. I just may not meet what they think, or
And
what other people may do.
yeah. And that's one thing I see a lot when I talk to young people. They'll be like, "Oh, I didn't put my name in for this." I said, "Well, why not?" Well, because people said it would be challenging. I was talking to somebody yesterday and they were applying for OTS board and they're like, "Well, put my name in for a pilot slot because they said it was too competitive." I said, "Don't ever let nobody tell you not to apply, because let them tell you no. Let them be the ones to tell you no. You just eliminated yourself.
Yeah,
You just gave slot to somebody else who may have been just on the same level as you, who put their name in." So
100%.
that's like one of those things where I watch it too much. Like, don't sell yourself short. Put your name in, put that application in, apply for that program, all those things, because you never know. The crazy thing is they might, yes.
Yeah. Well, and I do think we and I will say that I didn't always have that mentality, that we all tend to fall into that gap of, or we can fall into that gap of like, well, I
Yeah.
mean, look at that guy. That guy's really good and he got it. Maybe I'm not good enough for that, or gal is good at that. And I I just said, well, I'll give it a try. I feel like I would do well there. And I turned in the application, and then they flew me from Japan all the way back to US. And then it was a 2-day interview in DC, and went through all of that interview prep, which a lot of that helped me future for the airlines. But like a lot of that stuff, go ahead.
So tell me about that. Like, so you went to the interview to fly DV Airlift. So
Mhm.
the airlift is with the people that fly, the president, vice president, like
Yeah, so
all that.
the 89th Airlift Wing is comprised of two squadrons and the Presidential Airlift Group, which are all designed to support the uh, First Family, the White House, Congress, and all of our combatant commanders and cabinet members in DC. So you cover President, Vice President, Secretary of State, all of the Secretary of Defense, all of these different members of Congress and of our federal government have access to this fleet of aircraft, which I really didn't know. I just like, oh, well, you have a chance to fly presidential stuff, fly the first lady, the vice president, and then potentially the president. I'm like, all right, well, I want to try that. And so I applied. They bring you out there. I had the secret clearance from my reconnaissance days, so I knew I had the security clearance. You had to do an additional one, which is called a Yankee White, for presidential duty. So they just do another in-depth study, a little in-depth study, deeper into your background. You
Right.
get there, and the key thing with a lot of this is being able to work with high-level officials, being able to manage yourself when you're dealing with individuals that are doing which you don't realize at the time. Like these are pivotal events in the world, right? We're the nation,
Yeah.
superpower, and they expose you, and they have this one event where you go out to the bar. It's on base, but you have the bar, and they just want to see how much you're going to drink, and you just have, hey, I'll just have a social drink, or my secret, which is now on this, is that I get tonic water, and then they put it in a cup and they put a lime in it. And I was like, well, I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to act a fool. And there are people that just like, hey, it's an open bar. You can do whatever. But if you do the tonic water, I'm like, hey, I don't need to, it's not that I don't drink, but I'm like, if you don't
Right.
drink, that's good because then you don't have people pressuring you. You're like, oh, well, you already have a drink and you just sip on it.
But you didn't notice going into it, or you just assumed that, all right, is this
I
a
just
trick or is
knew
this
I'm
part
going in
of
an
the
interview, and I considered both days or anything that I'm doing as part of the interview. There were some
that's
people that
smart.
didn't realize it, and I just said, "Hey, I think I'm on display this whole time, so I'm gonna just kind of I'm not
That's a that's a good
getting
point.
crazy." Yeah.
You're always on parade, you're always display. It's
Well,
people are always watching.
and I will say, as being a minority officer, we're always on display. And so I had
No,
already kind of known that at the time. I was a major at the time applying. And I said, people see me, I stand out more than everyone else. And a lot of times, uh, you know, I recognize what I represent or I could represent to other people.
mhm,
And so when I'm wearing the uniform or when I'm interacting in those spaces, I don't have the luxury. I've never felt that I had the luxury to kind of act a fool and be able to get over it. And I knew for myself, I was like, well, those guys can do that and they might make it, but I can only control what I'm doing, and I'm going to
there you go.
operate in this manner. So,
That
interview went
that's
well.
that that's
Yeah, go
solid.
ahead. Yeah,
So was the interview, like a standard interview? You said it was a few-day interview, so
2 days. Yep.
2 days. So what are you doing in multiple days? It's not just a bunch of
So
questions, or like
they're
what's the
what they're doing is they're watching you, you're interacting, they're walking you through the squadron, they're showing you the planes. So you have now they have 550s, Gulfstream 550s, they have 737s, they have 757s. And so there's two squadrons. There's the 99th and the first airlift, 99th airlift squadron and the first airlift squadron. So the staff or the commanders, the leadership of those squadrons are watching you because they're trying to pick which squadron you're going to go in because it's it's like the NFL draft. It's just you're going through 2 days, and so you do have the interview. They ask you questions. They ask you flying questions, and kind of trying to find out who you are and how you react in certain situations. And it's not all stress, but they just want to kind of see you operate in different environments. You meet the flight attendants, you meet the communication systems operators, you interact with the enlisted there, and your other the other applicants, and then you meet other pilots there. So it's it's pretty intense. I think is the first time that I had done an interview as a after pilot training and flying. That was kind of my first interview for that kind of opportunity. And then you go back home,
yeah.
and then they call you. I'm like, oh man, I made it. That's awesome. I mean, I remember it because they called it like 2 a.m. because it was Okinawa time.
Yeah.
And he just woke me up and he's like, yeah, the guy had a raspy voice. I remember. He's like, Alex, I just I want to thank you. You did a really good on the interview. I want to invite you to the first airlift squadron. I was like, oh man, like awesome. Thanks, sir. He's an old lieutenant colonel, which I'm an old lieutenant colonel now, but that dude seemed a whole lot older than me. But so but he shared that with me. It was really fun for us, for the family, and we're like, all right, well, we're moving to DC from Japan,
Yeah.
and moved out here, and essentially have been here since then, because I got out here. Ended up doing 7 years. I spent 7 years in the community. I finished up.
How how was it? How was it when you were flying for that 7 years? Any notable experiences during that time?
I think so. I got there second term of Bush, and I flew second term of Bush and first term of Obama. So when we got there, I flew a lot of Condoleezza Rice, Cheney, Vice President Cheney, Secretary of Defense, Chairman Joint Chief of Staff, multiple different people around. And it was super interesting to kind of go to all of these different places all around the world. I will say, what is it like when you do your first landing, when you have, the primary on board, you're like, oh man, don't mess this up. But what you realize is they would not have had you there if you didn't know what you were doing. And so you go through your training, we practice. We're very meticulous on how we do what we were doing in our operations and our timing. And we're very accurate and very, the agency is, the call sign is Sam Fox. So it kind of embodies this perfection, which you can never reach perfection, but you're always striving for it. So there's a heavy emphasis on accuracy on when you're flying, accuracy of understanding your timing and getting people when they want to be there. Like, what time do you want to be there? You want to be there 1:30? You want the door to open at 1:30? All right. And so we'll change our timing and we'll adjust it to land, and we'll know how fast we need to taxi to turn the door. And I set the brake right at 1:30 and we can open the door.
So you guys, in the military, we think, and I always think, on time, on target when it comes to releasing weapons, releasing payload, releasing troops from the back of a C-130, but never really aligned with being able to land, get, and line up your DV to open the door at the exact time.
Yes.
And I know that it
was a whole different mental shift, because it was kind of the same thing in the RC-135 coming up for, rendezvous and, air refueling and stuff. But this was different. Now, the nice thing is we're always number one for takeoff and we're always number one for landing. No one ever,
right.
In that case, we have a lot of priority, but we do know how fast we need to fly. And sometimes you'll get there where they'll show up early, but they don't want to be early at their location because it'll mess everything up. So people won't be ready. So they'll like, hey, we'll show up early, but we want to get there on time. And we're like, okay. And so we'll set timing triangles. We'll fly slower. We'll taxi. We'll do all of that stuff so we don't arrive there.
It's like the math is the same, even if it's in a different application.
Yes,
you're still using the same things that you learn in basic flight training. All the way up through. I mean, in any community in the military, all that stuff that you learn are like, how do we lose time? How do we make up time? And then that of taxi time and that's actually pretty cool, because when you think about it, plane pulls up, door open, red carpet rolls out right on.
Yep, that's what we do. Yeah, we set it up. The hardest part is when they show up late and they want to be on time, and I'm like, we're like, hey, we're gonna do our best, but we can't. Usually, our overall timing is based at a set speed.
Right.
But you can't really go that much faster, and it's harder.
Right.
But we can get priority handling. But even then, there's only so much you can do, like on an hour, 2-hour flight. And
if you don't have like if you don't have like a shortcut that you can do, you're just kind of
no. There's there's if it's a straight flight, direct. And usually, what we say, if it's an hour flight, there's not much we can do. If you're late, we're going to get there late because we can't.
Yeah.
If they're on time or early, we can adjust. But if they are late, you can't make that up in an hour. 3-hour flight, 4-hour flight, we can kind of make up some time, depending on, what your planned Mach was. And so you adjust that, you learn all the little techniques on your speed, your timing. Smoothness is very important. So you're not doing any fast level offs. You're much controlled, using vertical speed a lot. And even on the descents, we're trying to be imperceptible by the passengers, even though they probably weren't paying attention anyways, but we try to make it so as smooth as possible. That was a lot of emphasis on that. But that whole time flying under the Bush administration, I think there were 2 events. One event where I flew down and we took Vice President Cheney to Atlanta, and my grandmother and my aunts my mom's side of the family all live in Atlanta. And so I called ahead, and this is how I got to be number one grandson. I've held the title since then. But we went down to Atlanta, and I called ahead, and I said, my grandmom and my aunt, I said, hey, we're here. If you guys want to come and see the plane while we're here, let me, give me your information. I'll get you through Secret Service, and then you can see it. Now, my mom's side of the family, they were sharecroppers in the Atlanta area. And so my parents
Yeah.
went to Tuskegee University, and my mom led a lot of the voting. She was very active in the, during that period, during the civil rights period, active in getting blacks voting. And so that was when my grandmother first voted. And so my grandmother first voted under my mom when she was in college. And then it was just super amazing to me to be able to kind of get them out and have her grandson flying, presidential airlift, the vice president of the United States into where she lives. And the cool part was that Secret Service wasn't letting her in. And so I came out in uniform, and I'm like, hey, both of them are good to come through. And then
There with
they were, yeah, yeah. And they come in. I was like, come on in. They're with me. And they love that. They came up, they saw the plane. Flight attendants gave them a little meal, and they treated them really nice. And it was awesome. We were on the ground for about 3 hours, but it seemed like 15 minutes, but it was super, an amazing experience. My aunt still talks about it. My grandmother unfortunately passed away, but like, it was just, you could see how proud she was. And it just really warmed my heart to be a part of that in our family history, to kind of have that arc there, to be able to do that. And then after that, I think the big thing is flying the Obamas when they came into office, first term for the Obamas, and they were superstars wherever they went. I was primarily Michelle Obama's pilot, and I flew her all over the planet, and I loved it. Amazing experience. They're amazing people. She signed my retirement picture with my family and everything. People ask me if she would know me. I seriously doubt she would know me. She's, yes. I mean, it's been a long time. Yeah. Yeah, sure. I knew you. So, but for those 3 years, the last 3 years I was in the military, I got to do that. I also I was in charge. I was a deputy director for the agency that manages all of the planes that the White House uses and Pentagon uses for all their senior leaders. And great, great time. Very stressful working at the Pentagon, and I was able to, whenever those flights were going, I was like, I'm going to go fly that, and then I come back and do it. But it was an amazing experience there. Really loved it. And then when I was coming up for retirement, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do at the time. The airlines weren't hiring.
right.
So I was just kind of considering what I wanted to do, where I wanted to be. And Boeing reached out to me. And so they asked me I was in charge of the Air Force One program in DC. So I worked in the DC office, the small community. So I was in a small community with the RC-135, and it was a very small community with the presidential airlift stuff. So I knew all the pilots that were doing that. And so I was customer facing, so I'd interact with those individuals and help them as they were figuring out what new Air Force One was going to look like, what we're going to look for the rest of the fleet, if it was a Boeing related product. And I did that for 5 years. And
How
I did
exciting was that?
so I went into it eyes wide open. I left, and it was a good paycheck. It was
Yeah.
really nice what they were offering, and I was like, "Oh man, this is kind of. I think this is what I want to do." And I mean, it kind of goes along the lines of, like, for a lot of military people, like, "All right, we're going to retire. You're going to go to a defense department or a defense contractor, and then you retire and you're done." But when I was there, a couple things changed. They changed a lot of the airlines, the American merger, the United mergers, the Delta mergers, all kind of figured themselves out. So around 2013, 2014, 2015, they were hiring again. And I looked at that and I said I wanted to get back into that. Um,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother journey of kind of a lot of self discovery on that, because I
Yeah.
did not want to. I wanted to just go direct from Boeing to a United American or FedEx or wherever. I just want to go to, I
Right.
didn't want to have to go to any regional. And I said, I felt I had a strong resume, but at the time they wanted 100 hours of flight time, current flight time. And I didn't have that. I was like, man, flew 3 years ago. It's not like you completely forget it, but that's what they wanted. All the airlines were telling me that. And I fought it. And then finally my wife's like, hey, if this is something you want to do, then we're going to need to kind of figure out what that is. And she gave me the space to take a 80% pay cut to go to a regional, and that was huge. I had two kids in college taking an 80% pay cut, but
Ooh, 80% pay cut.
uh, that
That's a lot of
that's a
sacrifice.
that's a big. But what I challenge everyone in life, whenever you're doing stuff, don't let fear make your decisions. And if and my wife was able to kind of give me the space to release the fear, and she's like, we'll figure it out. She was working, she was doing very well in her career. And she's like, we can make it work. Just if that's something you want to do, then you do it. And I think with dreams and whatever you want to do, don't let the fear of failure or the fear of whatever stop you from trying it. You at least try. And I said, well, we'll try it. We'll try it for a year. And if it doesn't work, then we'll figure something out after that. And I that was $30,000 a year. It was horrible. It was $1,000 every 2 weeks. I was like, oh my gosh, how do people live like this? Now it has, and so that was part of them
And
changing.
this is
Right.
doing that while having two kids in college, after working a whole military career, after working at Boeing. So this isn't, oh, I got out of college and now I'm making 30. It's you've made so much and made so many strides in your life. And then to
Yeah.
make that got to be really humbling.
Well, I will tell you, I I have never. uh, I will say I did have a. I did have a chip on my shoulder because I felt like I had done a lot, but when I kind of got it's weird because I was applying to all these different airlines and none of them were giving me anything. They're like, no interview. I was like,
Yeah.
just let me interview. And I couldn't get anything. And I was wondering, I was like, am I good enough to be an airline pilot? And I
Mm.
questioned. There was a big question. I was like, am I good enough to do this? Like all of these things that I've done in my career, retired, run all these command, chief of safety, evaluator, all of these different positions. And now I can't get anyone to want to hire me. So I question myself a lot. And then when I applied to the regionals, they called me like, boop. They're like, hey, you want to come over here? I was like, oh, somebody thinks I can do it. And I went there and I'd never flown turboprop, and I flew de Havilland Dash 8, which is a turboprop aircraft, two big turboprops, 30 passengers. And for United Express, it was called Commute Air. I had my best time there. I remember the exact day I started, and it was so freeing to be where I felt I needed to be, doing what I wanted to do, and not operating out of fear, but operating in love and operating in a space that I was like, hey, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. And amazing. I remember April 1st, 2016. And then I was there I applied. Now, I had this argument with my brother, or discussion with my brother. All I needed to get was 100 hours. And I was like, I just want to fly to get me 100 hours. And my brother, he's like, yeah, but you knew once you got 100 hours, you would get hired. I had to go, maybe I did know that, but I didn't know that for sure. And when I got 100
Mm.
hours, I didn't get, I was turning up and like no one called. And like for 5 weeks, I very much questioned my decision because I was like, I have everything, done it all. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And, my wife and I, we talked but I got the call. I was like, and then everybody called me. everyone that I applied to called. United Airlines was the first. United Airlines fit for me, culturally, fit for me where I was, and they had a DC base, which is where I wanted to be. And it worked out. It worked out perfect. It was an emotional experience when I finally, after I interviewed, and I will say, if anyone is going to an interview, even if you think you know how to do interviews, do interview prep. Make sure you're the best version of you shown for any job. And that's whether it's airlines or whatever you're doing when you're prepped for the best. And I felt I was in a strong position that I could do well in an interview because I interviewed for the 89th. I interviewed for Boeing. I did interviews for Boeing for hiring, and I was like, I understand the star method and all this stuff, but I knew I needed to. You only get one chance for that first impression. I was like, I want it to be the best, and
Yeah.
if somebody needs to critique me and fine tune or fix however I'm saying stuff, I want that opportunity so that I give them my best face at that one time. And it paid off and got hired. And I've been here 9 years. I love it. I love being a captain. Thank you, other captain. It is a great experience. Like you said, I'm on the 737. It's a great plane. I enjoy the career of aviation, but the beauty of the career of aviation in a commercial aviation is that when you're not flying, you can do whatever you want. And the power of that allows me to give back to my passion, my true passion, which is Legacy Flight Academy, and give them and helping kids learn about my journey and maybe see that spark or that excitement to get them to kind of pass through. I will say one quick side note is that I had found out that my great uncle was an original Tuskegee Airman. He passed away in like 1982, 81 timeframe,
Yeah.
but I didn't find out until 1996. And my grandmother's like, "Hey, did you know you had an uncle that flew?" I was like, all this time, I've wanted to be a pilot. And now this is when you're going to tell me. But
Now you tell me.
yeah, so he flew the P-51. He was in the 332nd Fighter Group, 99th Pursuit Squadron. I just recently, in January of this year, I got his wings and his
That's
medals,
cool.
and he got a Distinguished Flying Cross. He got a Distinguished Fly. He went against two German Messerschmitt 262s. Those are the jet. That was like the first jets that they had. So they intercepted that one after them. So
So
amazing
he
history.
was one of those that won it as the two, and
Oh,
he shot him down. Or oh man,
no, they escaped because they're
oh,
faster. They
okay.
turned, yeah,
I'm
they
about
got
to say,
away.
man, them things is, but
But they got
still
it,
going up.
Christopher. They. I'm trying to get the exact verbiage from the medal, but
Okay,
that's what he got a Distinguished Flying Cross
that's
for
cool.
intercepting and attempting to shoot him down. But I say all that because Legacy Flight Academy honors the Tuskegee Airmen, and even before, it is all part of honoring their legacy and creating the pathways for those to kind of get there. And I love what we do. I love that seeing that in the kids' eyes when we fly them, when they come back and they try to act tough initially, and then they're all super excited once they're flying. And I go, I love that, and I love that we're
Yeah,
able to plant the seeds for the future generations. So yeah,
man, absolutely, man. That's great, man. You got a lot of cool stories, and I think that y- all your stories like line up with a lot of the lessons that we teach young people.
oh yeah,
Uh, Even like things that we try to put into parents to help them guide their kids if they're trying to work their way through aviation. Because think like when you take a step back and look at your story, you're like Alex was 20 Air Force pilot, went to Boeing, and then questioned if he should be a pilot still. You know what
yeah,
I mean? Like it's real crazy how people just assume that once you've accomplished things, you no longer are vulnerable to uncertainty or fear at all. They just think that, oh, you've already done all this. You should be able to, you're over anything. But man, that fear sits with you, and
yeah.
uncertainty, figuring out, can I do it? Will I do it?
I think the
Ver-
self doubt is always there in all of us at some
Yeah.
level, but
Hmm.
having a strong belief system in yourself, and as you're growing, and just saying, you know, what if they say no? It's okay. I'm going to try. I'm going
Yeah.
to let them say no, and I'm going to try. I'm going to try to do this because I think I can, or I believe that I can, and that belief is powerful in whatever you're doing, whatever pursuit you choose. Is just taking that and saying, I don't care what everyone else, because you can listen to the all the noise on the outside. And I will say that it'll be bad I'm putting on a podcast, but like I didn't tell my parents that I was going to leave Boeing to go fly for the airlines because I knew they would try to talk me out of it. They're like,
You
"Why
know,
would you leave
I understand that.
start a job?"
I,
And
I
and I look at it and I'm like, I but again, it wasn't their decision. It's my wife, it's my family,
yeah,
my immediate family's decision because that's affecting them, not my
right.
parents. But they come from a generation that you just do that job, you do that job forever. And I tell individuals, I'm like, and for you and I, we're pilots, but our occupation is pilot. That's something we do. It's not who we are.
Yeah, yeah.
And and we're so much more, right? You're so many other things, a father, an Air Force officer. We're doing all of these things to give back to
Entrepreneurs,
people, entrepreneurs, big
you know,
time. Yeah.
philanthropists, all that.
Hmm. And understanding that, and even from young person, old person, medium age person, either one, we all go through those. Well, we all go through those self doubt, right? When different things happen in life, and and
So
and I
how do you overcome that, or how do you face that self doubt that presents itself over and over? Especially as we know in aviation, there's so many points
Yep.
where you're to feeling whether you're good enough because
Well,
there's
the instructors beat
sometimes
me up.
feel like there's these instructors beating you up. It feels like there's some hazing at some point,
Yeah.
you know, where you're always stacked up against something. Like, how do you fight that self doubt?
I think, and it was one of the things that helped me through the Air Force Academy as well, is you can have a bad day, just don't have a bad week.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you on that.
Because you're going to
And
have bad days. And so you just try to, and you're like, all right, on to the next one. And like, all right, we're going to
yeah,
try, okay, I did that. Don't do that again. Or, all right, that's how I
yeah,
did that. Let me try to improve upon it and not, and this is something I was just dealing with, which I think everyone deals with at some level, is once it's past, it's past. Now, what are you going to do? All right. So you had a bad day,
yeah,
what are you going to do now in the present? And when you can do that and kind of just forget, well, I mean, there are lessons to be learned, but don't hold on to that.
right,
Don't hold on to that
right,
negative and just say, I know I can do better. I am going to do better, or
yeah,
I'm going to make it. And one thing I didn't bring up was when I was in pilot training, I got airsick a lot. And to the point where they were going to kick me out. And they put me on this chair called the Bernie chair, which is some mad
mhm,
scientist came up with it. They spin you around till you throw up, and they do it 3 times. And so when I was in pilot, I'm there, and like it happened on the first one. They're like, "Oh, it's okay, it's natural." Everybody kind of gets queasy on the first one, and then it kept happening. And they're like, "Hey, you can't do that." So I would fly, I get sick, I'd come down, and they'd spin me 3 times till I got sick. And then I'd fly, I'd get sick, I'd come down, they'd spin me 3 times, and I'd throw up. They'd throw up each time, so you throw up 3 times. So for about 2 weeks, I went through that, and I questioned everything that I had gotten to at that point. I was like, I don't know if I like this. And to that mindset point, I had gotten to the point where my body was no longer being sick. Like that bear that's spinning me in that dang chair. Like I got
yeah,
used to it, and I'm like, all right, I know good. No, I was still getting sick because they would just make you do more things to try to get you sick. but like the act of being in the plane was not getting me sick. That was my head. And I'm like, yeah, I'm probably going to get sick. And I remember keep saying it, I would say, yeah, I'm probably going to get sick this flight. And I remember smelling the JP8, JP4, whatever, that I'm like, yeah, I'm probably going to get sick. And I made it true. And I got
It's like
one chance.
Pavlov's law.
Huh?
Pavlov's.
Oh, yeah. I had gotten to that point. Well, I was saying it enough and it was all in my head. And they gave me, I'm pretty sure it was a placebo, but they said, hey, we're going to give you this and this should help and you won't get sick, just to kind of see if you're good. And they gave it to me on that flight. Now, mind you, I had failed every single time I got sick. I failed that flight, even if I did the maneuver. So I only got sick in the pattern. I could do spins, acro, all that stuff, never bothered me. It was just in the pattern, bouncing around with the, you got this flight suit, parachute, helmet.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
because it's hot and you're in Del Rio, Texas, and you're just getting beat up. We're there in May, and I flew, and I remember we took off, and like. If you've ever not felt good, like in a car or somebody's trying to explain something to you, you don't hear it. You're just like, yeah, whatever. The guys were telling me all the stuff, the routes. I remember I flew that one day. I wasn't thinking about being sick. And he was pointing, I was like, is this all it is? I'm like, I'm finishing. I go, I will never be sick again. I am finishing. And I've never been sick again. And I finished. And I just,
I
needed something to like, and as soon as I made that click, I was, you go forward and you have to, there's a level of belief and you can go into your self-doubt. You can ride that train down, which I was doing for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever it is to get you out of that and being in a state of positivity about yourself, because the self-talk will beat you up every time. I mean, we all have our own self-talk in our own way. But being able to overcome that is powerful. And I'm very proud of the fact that I was able to take that and, despite having that, finish the program and continue on. And, me throwing up then, never thought I was going to be a presidential pilot. I never thought I was going to be able to do that, flying DVR. At that point, I was like, I just want to land this plane. Yeah. So.
Man, it's real interesting. That's crazy. It's like you say, you look at these small little feels like losses or that you're not gonna make it, and not even be able to see like how far you'll end up or where you'll end up, which is really cool. Not just doing that, but also think about all the people who you've helped inspire and get to the point where they get to then live their dreams too. So, man,
yeah,
that's great, man. Man, anything else you want to add before we call it quits? Cut the mics and everything, man.
This is one thing I just came up. Well, I started saying it just a couple days ago, is like in life and everything that you're doing. It's like a tree. You look at it, a tree, beautiful, fully grown tree. You can focus on the dead leaves or the frayed part that isn't looking so good. But when you step back and you look at that whole tree, it's beautiful. It's a gift. It's out there and it's a beautiful thing. So don't worry about focusing on that. Look at all of the fruits of that tree that it bears, the flowers, the fruits, all of that stuff. That's who we are as individuals. And you don't need to focus on those small parts. Look at the big part and know that you can do those things. And I think that helps anyone if you're talking to kids. And this is a lifetime of thought and mindset, because mindset's key. So that's it.
All
that's
good.
My
appreciate
final
you,
thought.
Alex Cole.
Yes, sir.
Great talk, man. Can't wait to see you whenever I see you again. And I hope everybody enjoyed the show.